recording.
Great.
And well, you don't, just ignore that practice. All the other ones are too. Okay. So, Peter,
Okay. Right. Welcome to the Blue Sky team. Our brief was very much wider than the rest of you guys. So we tried to step back and look at Moelyci as a whole and its kind of place in the community, so rather than focusing on any one element of the site or the design. We tried to follow the segment process and started by looking at the survey, moving on to functions, but again all of ours is quite a high level, so again looking at a whole site rather than any individual project, which we would expect very talented people like you guys to do, as you've already done today, with beautiful diagrams and information. So to start with, we're going to hand over to Grace and Lucy, who are going to look at a little bit about the design, the start of the design process, the survey, kind of how we started that, and then looking at kind of the assets and the constraints and information from the client that helped.
I would like to introduce you all to our collective brain. It transpired onto a piece of paper within a TP. I really appreciate you not taking any photos around the campus. This process, so our process starts with everybody going, what is blue sky thinking? And it was only last night late when I actually googled the term blue sky thinking, I actually realised it was anything our imaginations could hold for this place was valid for our presentation. So we interviewed Adam, who's our client, and he's Coombe Harry's top boss, or one of the top bosses, and we asked him a heap load of questions, which Grace might go through.
Yeah, so a lot of the answers we got were kind of what we were expecting, but I think we were all a bit surprised by when we asked him what he saw as the biggest asset being. Here he said the 700 plus members, so yeah, we thought he'd say something like more kind of economics, yeah, more businessy, and about the history as well, which he thought was a big asset to going forward. Yeah, so we asked him what he was asking of us, and he was kind of like, you just go ahead and do it, and obviously think about the money and the mortgage to pay, and he was very keen about giving the community back assets, and he was also very keen about making things replicable, like a replicable model. So yeah, I think that's kind of it.
So as my introduction to you all, I'd like you to take a view of Moelyci as a whole. Not just from where you're sat now, but from way up there. And I'd like you to all close your eyes if you don't mind. I don't mind if you nod off. And I'm going to take you to look at Moelyci from space. As we look down from space, we see a planet of blue and green held back lightly in a vast and black universe. Looking closely at this rock, land appears peppered with mountains and deserts and forests, curved and sculpted by time and water and winds, and now people. In the short time humans have lived on this rock, we have used the natural elements held within the earth to create and mould the landscape around us. At first, this collection of people travelling together made simple shelters, using the materials around them. They may have settled where there was an abundance of food and water close by, no longer the nomadic hunter-gatherers that we perhaps once were. When we had exhausted the local area, maybe as early people, we'd learned to farm the land around us. Early on, with no books to guide us and no experience to draw from, farming took place at a slow and steady pace. Growing our own food and living together in a group provided a protection and a way to share and develop an ever-increasing sophistication of a society obsessively exploring new ideas, using at our will the provisions around us. This exponential and fanatical use of the land without giving back is leading us to a worrying stalemate. With modern communications as fast as light, we know no bounds. We have convinced ourselves that some of us can take from the earth without a real thought to the immediate consequences. We exploded in the West after the Industrial Revolution, and it gave us more power than we knew what to do with. What did our ancestors feel when they struck coal and oil for the first time and realised its potential? What did they do to make sure that we, their children, were provided for? Or did they forget to look to the future? What do we look forward to in our future to make provisions for those who will come after us? What are our long-term strategies to accommodate our future selves? Right now, I see a world obsessed with greed. We have collectively run away with ourselves and have no limits on what we want to obtain for our personal gain. On a land run by a government ruled by its economy, reality has shifted from survival of the fittest to an arrival of the fattest. Humans and nature have taken two different paths. They no longer seem to complement each other and work together in a system that is to me so intrinsically linked, working outside it appears insane. So what can be done? How do I shift my thinking to activate my real human nature, the one that is kind to my people and doesn't just take from the land around me, but also gives back? Looking now at Moelyci, we see a landscape shaped by glaciers, a ground full of moraine rock. Since that time, there's been a succession of plant and animal life, helping to build up a thick and juicy layer of living soil. We can see evidence around us of iron-age roundhouses, early farmers working the land and feeding its community. On this land in the 1800s, a typical Welsh home farm was organised to feed the community. When the last tenant farmer left about 12 years ago, the surrounding community created an industrial provident society to keep the land together and move forward with the community and education and the environment it esteemed. Why am I telling you this? Because now a new team of people have come to the front line to create a realistic and groundbreaking system that will link the land with 700 shareholders, the immediate community, the wider community, the education system, the idea of feeding ourselves from our land, run by people, for the people, a replicable model using all the assets immediately around the mountain and wider. We've got the road links, the people links, the historic links, we've got the university, we've got towns around us, we've got people who want to now get on this land and grow in a more permaculture mindset. I think we've got a great advantage of looking at Moelyci. I'd like to introduce two concepts to link Moelyci together. The first one is the idea of the house being at the heart of Moelyci, and the house holding people together and holding the land, and then the farm being turned to what it was, a farm feeding the people. So Grace, would you come in there? Oh no?
Just a little, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. We asked Lucy to do that because she is just the most beautiful communicator, and I think everyone will agree that was it just paints such a gorgeous picture of the history and kind of brings us to where we are now. And again, it's not looking at any one area, it's looking at, again, Moelyci as a whole and what it can offer as a whole. Before we kind of go on to a couple of specific areas, we wanted to go on to, again, following the Sadimet process. We looked at functions, and it picks up what Lucy was saying about there's so much here. We kind of drew in a little, not as beautifully artistic as we've seen today. Just looking at all the different areas and functions within Moelyci. Sorry, we just, I can't.
Put it on the floor and then read this.
Yeah, that's easy. Thank you. So kind of go back to the heart of Moelyci. We looked at the clients or Cwmhari's requirements and their underlying principles, which is about these overlapping areas of environment, education and enterprise. And kind of at the heart of that is the idea that all of those to work need to be economically sustainable. But that's kind of underlies the heart of Moelyci. But then, as Lucy started saying, you've got all these amazing things on site, facilities, different functions, and they all interlink. As you say, as you guys have already said, waste from one area goes into a different area. Food from the garden goes into the shop, goes into the restaurant, goes into the cafe. So everything joins. And it was a bit like, remember, we did the kind of spider's web at one point during the course. But for us then, you can kind of keep feeding out as it grows, so it's not a static thing, so the web will keep growing and growing and growing and growing as Moelyci develops and matures over the years. But I've kind of circled it all, and again, that everything sits in community. Everything Adam said and the team felt is all about community. It serves community, it's served by the community, it supports the community, nurtures, enriches, encourages, develops the community. Without that, it becomes another beautiful piece of land that just goes back to nature. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that, but it's there and it will develop because of the community. So again, a kind of a different way of showing an overview. Then, as Lucy was saying, we looked at two particular areas where we wanted to expand a little bit more. Again, because ours was kind of such a wide brief, we haven't gone into such detail as some of the other groups about timescales and costings, because we would see, again, you'd use the expertise in those areas to develop those projects and bring them on. But I said first part of the implementation potentially from one of the hub, the area that's value to the organisation is the farm. Martin's going to talk to us about
because let's not forget that it is a farm. Primarily it's a working farm. So here is Moelyci, a vision. An example, perhaps, of how a simple, extensive system could set new precedents and write a new rule book. There has never been such an important and relevant time to put permanent, self-sustaining systems into play. Moelyci is well placed geographically to be able to deliver a tangible programme of both production and breeding, whilst being in the unique position to bring these in touch with every sector of the public and the local farming community. The potential to demonstrate an exciting new integrated approach to the traditional hill farm and smallholding is virtually limitless. This approach, inclusive of the developing permaculture ethos, has a many-faceted inclusive look. Some core advantages perhaps are example to the more traditional and dated ideals inherent in mainstream agriculture and education. For instance, demystify the production of milk to the general public by offering a hands-on attitude to accessibility. This would enable access to whole new revenue streams and raise the profile of Moelyci. To implement this is going to take a whole new vision in land stewardship and its relationship with the greater community. Very successful and very professional models of this already exist. For example, River Cottage and the Findhorn Foundation, with which links can be established, putting Moelyci and Kilmarnock in the greater public eye and at the same time compounding our permaculture ethics. The perceived limiting factors to this can be very easily overcome with minimal capital outlay, maximising on the current infrastructure. An example of this could perhaps be becoming part of the development process in a radical new system emerging around mobile milking parlours, which advances in animal welfare and production, even designing and producing units and tailoring to specific customer requirements, whilst also freeing up the development of the existing buildings and policies for more lucrative and visionary use. As an experimental unit, this would require minimal capital investment, around the stock box, for example. This would fortify the possibility of creating a Moelyci stamp on breed development for small-scale farmers and maximising profit by creating our own independent source of produce for the proposed on-site outlets. By starting small to concentrate on excellence, this system would be able to run alongside the existing graziers and constraints. If implemented, this could create links with the mainstream agricultural colleges with obvious benefit. Although radical, these new systems, by their extensiveness, can run hand in glove with the historical nature of the farm, restoring the frith, for example, and not totally deviating from tradition. History has a future on Moelyci. To further compound these ideas, it is probably essential from the outset of the enterprise to enter into organic conversion and get the Soil Association approval for all Moelyci produce. Given the existing nature of the farm, probably a mere formality. The farm workshop is an essential part of every farm, be it a 3,000-acre arable unit or a 300-acre hill farm, essential to the smooth running of everyday life, but only very little used. This facility could be maximised by creating space, perhaps a community garage idea, doing basic maintenance for the local population who are perhaps struggling with the cost of keeping an aging vehicle on the road, and could create training opportunities for local youngsters. The chance to rewrite the rulebook around farm and land use as a community and education facility is within easy grasp, given the 700 committed stakeholders, the nature of the farm, and the support, vision, and commitment of Come Harry, and shifting the idea of farms from the secular, generally lonely place of work to a more holistic and community asset with Moelyci at the vanguard. That's what I thought perhaps for that minute.
It was released by committee, so we kind of focused on whatever we wanted to. So I was always really interested in the house, so that's what I focused on. So I thought about the client interview that we had with Adam, and he reiterated the point that he wanted Moelyci to really be owned and truly operating in that community, and for it to be a working farm as well. So I looked at the house for a few reasons, because I think it's the greatest physical asset, aside from the land that Moelyci has currently. And it's not being fully utilised at the moment. It's empty probably more than half the time. And it's zone 0, and it's really key. You start at zone 0 and then you move out, I think. And it's the home, or it should be the home, or centre of activity, and hopefully the heart of Moelyci. Okay, so the observed experiences. So as a group, we all agreed that someone should be living in the house, or people should be living in the house. It feels weird that it's empty, and it's kind of working with nature. Its original purpose was to house people who worked on the land, and I think that's what it should be used for now. And so going back to what Adam wanted, a working farm, and I think that's what's going to happen. We need an on-site community to support that function. And I think it would be low input, high output, so it's already a house, it's already got a kitchen, a bathroom, it kind of feels like someone's house, so it wouldn't take that much to make it back into that. So we thought about, renting it to someone, just a farmer or whatever. But I think the housing cooperative idea was links all the enterprise, the environment and education, fair share, earth care, people care, and hopefully this next one will makes me realise I think it's the best option. Okay. There's a lot on here. Okay, I don't even know where to start. Okay, I'll start here. Replicable model. So Adam talked about Moelyci being a place that can be replicated. People can come here and get inspired to think that, you know, that's how I can farm or that's how I can live. And I think that having Moelyci as a housing co-op is a really radical way of thinking. It's inspiring to people who may have not heard of the idea before. So yeah, it could be done elsewhere. Making it a housing co-op, it would have a built-in ethical and legal framework already when it legally becomes a co-op. So yeah, I think it would inspire people to have unity and cooperation at the centre of Moelyci. So sharing, cooperation, and I see it as only providing housing for people who are working on the land, long-term volunteers, farm manager, whatever you want to call it, or whoever. But they've got to be the right people, they've got to get it, they've got to get Moelyci, they've got to get everything about it. So financially, I know there's an £8,000 a month mortgage. So if you think about rent, if it's a 5-bedroom place, maybe £50 per person per week. Housing benefit is working with that as well. So that's quite a bit of money that would be going to pay the mortgage. There could also be investment by becoming a co-op from Radical Roots or from other co-ops. And going back to, I think that you get greater support from people from the community. They would buy into the idea. They would say, yeah, I'll give you some loan stock to get it started, or do it up a bit, or whatever. Whereas I think if it was just rented out to someone, that wouldn't really happen. It's self-sustaining and self-managed, so Kamhari don't really want to be landlords. They don't want to be dealing with all of that stuff. And it's also self-empowering for the people who are living there. So yeah, I want it to be a place where people come to grow, to be educated. I want it to have a buzz about it, kind of like Belen Uchav in that sense. Young people, older people, a mix of different people living and working together. I think it would have multiple learning functions, so for the members themselves, they're learning how the cooperative process works, visitors who come to visit Moelyci, and also the linking in with the academy, training experience for people who are going through the PDC or in the academy, having a co-op right there and talking about cooperative principles and how it really works in practice. It would be really great to have it right there. And I think it would be a more open and welcoming hub, a more open and welcoming place for people to come in for a cup of tea or whatever, rather than it just being someone's house that they're renting. And it's a truly community-owned asset, which I'll get into. And also, yeah, back to Adam, he likes brand and marketing, and it's got that exciting brand value of it being co-op and it being all exciting. Okay. The details that I kind of came up with. So I could see it still being owned by Moelyci / Kamhari / whoever owns this place, and the co-op renting it long term, them giving rent to Moelyci, and it being a non-fully mutual housing co-op, so that maybe a member from the trustee board or a member from the academy could also be a member of the co-op, so they could see the workings of it and they could have some input into it as well. I've spoken about Radical Roots, the screening process of people who you'd let into the co-op, which I think I've kind of talked about. Occupants must be working / training at Moelyci, or maybe even micro-business people who are trying to do their experiments or whatever here. They need to have somewhere to stay. And I see it as maybe a 6-month minimum to 3 years. I don't see it being a co-op where people settle down for life and that's their house. I see it as a place where people come here for a few years to work the land, to get skills, to get knowledge, to live with people of that same, idea, and then go off and go and live their life and do whatever. And then we talked about, because it's such a high turnover of people, that there'd have to be some kind of continuity. So talked to Steve and he said the academy could provide that. It could be a good training exercise for people going through the academy to help with the co-op and the future. So obviously, long term there needs to be different types of housing for different types of people, but right now the house is all we've got. So yeah, in the future maybe the co-op could grow, its infrastructure could grow, and yeah, long term, whatever, because I don't know what is going to happen, whether Kamahari will be here in 5 years, but it could still remain a co-op, but it could have more, be more stable and have longer term occupants living here rather than people flitting in and out. And that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you. We were going to talk a bit about community and education and access, but I think everyone else has done that already. You presented, I think, what a lot of our thoughts were in terms of making it very accessible, the idea of a sensory journey into the site, how it might be developed on a permaculture basis, so utilising all the areas around the site. That was just beautiful and visual. And it does give access to lots of different people, whether you're just passing by and happen to kind of almost fall over it, or you live just around the corner, you live on site. It's accessible to everybody, and I think that's what's been lacking perhaps sometimes in the past. We're welcoming to everybody, every shape, form, size, creed, colour, everything. So it's very open. So, as I said, we won't talk anymore about that because everyone's done a great job, which gives more time for Lucy, who has to get up and do something active.
Okay, to find my black pen on start with.
So, yeah, the one area that no one else really has spoken about particularly is the shop and the cafe, and that's something that Lucy's passionate about. So, it's going for a bit of audience participation.
Yep, I think that's fair to say.
That's a surprise, yeah.
So starting in Parma, I would like to brainstorm a shop. I've lived here for 15 years. I don't have a shop in my local village. There isn't a shop in Tregarth that closed down maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. The closest shop to here is probably Bedham Garage, the One Stop Garage, Londis Spa in Bethesda, which is all driving distance. And you have quite a big catchment, you have a lot of traffic coming at the end of the road. And I don't want to go to Tesco's. So, I've had a little think about the infrastructure, thinking about what we've got already in sort of a permaculture sense. We've got the shop. We already have got a shop. It's open maybe 6 days a week from 10 to about 5, if we're lucky. That's what the sign says, that's not the reality. To be a shop, to be something that gets people here, the footfall, it needs to be open 7 days a week. And
or just when it says.
Or when it says, or yeah.
Like in Bethesda, they've got the community shop, sorry. And it's like every Wednesday. No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it would be nice to think that we could have a decent shop. I am absolutely loving Richie's idea of a shop. I think it could look absolutely stunning. If we just, instead of thinking about that, just bring it back to what we've got now. We have a shop right now, so in 3 to 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks, could we have something that would be more tangible? Could we have a bit of a bigger shop using what we've got here? With low costs, we'd need to get a volunteer group together from the community. It could be like the idea of these community shops, and I know there's some good models of these community shops around. I'm about to go and visit one on Monday. I've seen one in South Wales. I think they're a really good working model. With a part-time manager, linking it all together, making sure that everything's, all the stock's being checked and everything's been ordered and everything's flowing. So, what I'd like for my audience Martin. What do people want to see in the shop? Milk! Alright.
I'd like Tesco soup.
Tesco soup?
I would want it ever like flowers.
Socks.
Socks. Flowers. I bought flowers from here. It's really nice.
Beer.
Local cheese.
Eggs.
Cheese, wine. Woolly hats. Right on the raised beds.
Good value meat.
Local juice.
Yeah, locally produced meat.
Vegetables.
The hard and fast problem.
Yeah, want free range eggs, though. We don't want any of that.
Is it a craft shop as well?
What do you think? Is it a craft shop?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing about the eggs and stuff, I'm not just about free range eggs, but eggs that chickens
Yeah.
or eggs.
So
Yeah.
we should put
Free range doesn't
From the
mean a
chicken
lot
tracks
these
and
days.
from here. And
Does this get as far as the shop?
well, yeah, right. Well,
There's film that went here first and that house.
but I'm not going to
going into what Mark said about prospects, so we big eco-buy products that are just kind of kind to the planet.
Locally made home from
No bleach.
seeds.
cattails.
You have to see.
You can swap them and you can have donations.
I think Moelyci ought to have a
High quality, proper
Biochar, yeah. Biochar, definitely.
res.
Out loud, I can't hear you.
Biochar!
One at a time. I've already done that.
One
Just
himself.
lots of biochar.
Heading to
Toiletries, cosmetics, toiletries, essentials, toothpaste, toilet roll. Plants and trees and...
Because you want to support other local businesses as well, don't you?
It depends. I'm not sure exactly who the customers are though. Is it you kind of expect?
We were the customers.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Replicated all
They're local.
I just put you back in, if you were listening earlier,
Yeah.
three flats, 300 houses, 1,000 occupants,
Right.
no shop. The bed and garage, which is a long distance, its only shop. Bethesda, goodness knows, Tanflecid, Lockwood, not, they're using Spa and Londis. We've got Tregarth here, there's no shop that close about 3 to 5 years ago. We have quite a big population of people. We've got
5,000 people
We've got
at a time.
Ladinford, we've got a lot of people
About 5,000,
not wanting to go
25,000.
to Tesco's. Hands up who likes going to Tesco's, little, yeah. 3 people.
Well, and the thing is, like,
Do you prefer to go
But
to
I might
a
have
Moelyci
you
shop?
enjoy it. If you're going to manage shop, you may as well have stuff in it that's a rate more rate.
Yeah. I like the way the shop worked in Bethesda that has loads of people's stuff for sale. So maybe they're waiting and we've all got little numbers like we do at Google Little Festival. There's 30 people there with other stuff and one person a day volunteers to do that.
So do we want second-hand things?
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
Although they are doing that in the festival.
Yeah.
But that's good, there's not going to be
There's a lot of stuff in the world.
Tesco's doing
Recycled
Tesco.
books.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola's doing Coca-Cola.
That
Everybody's doing it.
information,
How do you
manage
manage
the supply chain of all these things?
there's super comes and dumps it on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Stock control.
If you've got a part-time manager that's alone the work as a part-time management, everyone I've spoken to who's had any experience with a community run shop says you have to have one paid position pulling it together. This is how I see up here as well. If you want a permaculture academy, if you want it to be a working farm, there has to be someone pulling it together and holding it together. Communication has to work. You know, if you've got lots of people not quite knowing what to do, that's when things fall apart. There has to be a brain behind it. It doesn't mean to say that person's bossy or that person has all the responsibility, but it just has to be someone holding the space. So with part-time manager, and I'd like us to just think about all of these things, how much of this can you produce on Moelyci? You know?
Well, surely as much as possible on permaculture principles.
Well, that would be your unique selling point, wouldn't it? Otherwise, you're just competing with Spa down there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it has to be. It has to be more your product.
There could be handmade soaps on site.
Things that
There are handmade
communicate.
soaps that are, Tregarth is a person making goat milk soaps.
Yeah.
That's
So
who you
they're in there now.
want in the shop.
Yeah.
The whole community, that's what I love about it.
I mean, we've got to make beer though, Rich.
You can make everything on there.
Yeah.
I don't know about loo paper.
More local, and then
Fresh fish.
more recycling,
Fish.
more fish.
Perhaps you could
Well,
turn it on
once
its,
or twice
perhaps you
a
could
week.
turn it on its head a little bit. It's a community shop, it should be stocked with community products.
Yes.
And then you could leave it up to the community to stock your shop as opposed to you having to, chase suppliers all the time.
And then start essentially going to
Get good, provide them, you could actually essentially rent them the shelf space and it's their responsibility to bring it in.
So each person who makes things has a shelf that they have to empower
Yeah,
themselves.
you just rent.
That's a great way to do it. That's
Yeah.
what for rent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what would you call that shelf rent?
rent the shelf space.
Capricorn rent.
Would there be any money exchange? I mean, if I sold carpets,
The shop takes a
The
big
shop.
percentage.
Yeah, but the
could
shop
I,
takes-
could I not swap that for
No.
eggs over a month period?
There's no reason why you can have a
Nice.
wet system like that.
And it's-
Or
Or money.
Moelyci pound.
Yeah, I want
I
to
don't think
keep
the manager,
currency.
I think you have to leave that one.
I want to keep currency, that's what I like to see. And see that working through the retail here.
And if I can't sell that carpet, I'm going to make something else. I'll make a scarf to get my eggs.
That's
How
a
about
great way to do it.
forage produce and how that people who can come find timber and I think game as well, like, rabbits and pheasants.
Yeah.
Rabbits and pheasants.
There have to be some rules, there wouldn't in terms of, keep perishable goods that you bring in for 3 days. And then you
Yes,
have
it needs to be
take-
managed, it needs to be managed,
It needs
yeah.
some sort of managed.
No, I've got a composting outlet, so waste, get rid of waste.
Or perishable goods that don't sell, go back up to the permaculture academy.
Yeah.
Are there local markets or anything like that?
There's 3 markets that are operated every other week at the moment. There's one in Bethesda, there's one in Newfoundland, they're about 5 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles. And there's a Bangor market, which is every Friday or every other Friday at the moment. So I'm looking at cars now.
It's not so local.
But it's not a local produce, it's more
Some
of
of it
it's sketched pictures of famous
Apples
celebrities
and
and
pears.
The farmers market seems a good place possibly to take a bit of the shop to
Yeah.
advertise, to gain awareness that this is around your area and that's, if you came up with a great idea of taking food to Bangor,
Yeah.
cooking
Food
it,
van.
Food van.
Yeah.
and raising awareness to
Promoting.
students in Bangor through a mobile little
And advertising the courses.
and selling food and produce from here and falafels or whatever.
Whatever there is that day.
Yeah.
Could you use the space like a car park space to run a market here?
yeah.
There is
There
sometimes
are
at
markets.
markets.
Community
Yeah.
market.
Sometimes, yeah.
You're not just renting the shelf space, you're actually renting the car park space.
That's really good.
Sunday.
That would bring a lot of people in, wouldn't it?
Would you see that as every week for continuity's sake, or could you do that every other week?
As soon as you're producing enough stock to fill it every week.
It's hard to remember it.
Just thinking if you're talking
Is
about, if you're talking
Every
about,
other week skis and
Every week?
it's normally
Every other
like
week.
Christmas and
Yeah.
So already they have events here, usually it's spring, summer, autumn, winter events.
Yeah.
Would you see more markets being useful, or do you think we're saturated with farmers markets already?
I don't
I'm thinking more outdoor shopping.
Find
Bridge is quite popular, that's once a month.
Once a month.
You're trying to get people out of Tesco's, it's got to be regular and reliable, hasn't it?
So do you
Yeah.
think every week and having a big presence every week at the weekend with
I
events?
just, I think good idea to talk to Graham because they tried to put it on every Sunday and it was really difficult at Hendra with the Permaculture Cafe. And they struggled.
Are we in Travelling? We just have a cheese van and a fish van, and that's it. But we've also got that's very popular, but because Travelling has a post office, a baker's, a veg shop, and just those main things. If you live in a rural area, just because it's rural, they know that Thursdays are going to come to Travelling. And they
Train
do
your audience.
everything.
Right, guys.
Just set patterns.
I'm absolutely blown away by everything everyone said. It's my job to go on Monday to do some market research for the first community run shop here in Moelyci, and thank you for being my first witness.
Well done, Sam. Any closing thoughts from your group? Does anybody want to tie anything together? Or is that it?
Only then, excuse me, dog. Only, it's probably reiterating what everyone else has said, that to make it all work, to bring it all together, it's just going over getting the community involved, getting their buy-in and support to make it work, creating thriving businesses that are economically viable and sustainable, and trying to make use of all the assets and develop holistic systems so it's constantly feeding itself again, so it becomes self-sustaining in the widest sense. I think is that it? Team?
Yeah.
That's it then.
Any just points of clarification? I want to keep it really tight because time's short, but any other specific points, sort of questions or clarifications that burn in the way? Okay, well, I'll give some feedback from the perspective of the course tutor. And I know that yeah, it's just fantastic. A lot of things. A really interesting, challenging brief as well. That's sort of a blue sky brief. I think there was something in there that I kind of found myself just sort of jotting down at the end, but maybe that ties it all together, which is about brand values, and I think that came up a couple of times in the presentation. That is a coherent way to communicate what Moelyci is about, and enable people to understand that and to build a relationship with it, and that will be the heart of its success. And if we can't sort of give a coherent communication of what that is, then people don't know that that process is the beginning. And I think this one came from the second group, also the first group, but your little icons, just that little, even just the end, you know, that symbol could say so much, they could have such power. And instead of all these names and confusions and, you know, all these, you know, it actually could bring down Moelyci to something that is incredibly powerful and beautiful. And it could just be a simple little symbol that represents all of those amazing things that we've just explored. And at the heart, you know, we've done this through a permaculture framework. That's the purpose of this course, and I've asked you to look at it through permaculture principles and to use the models that we looked at in the course. And you all, you know, you've done that. You've tried to use it. And I hope you agree permaculture is a very powerful framework to look at really complicated things, because it can look at the coherence of what you all come out with. And because we've been really conscious of our ethical model, not as a straitjacket, but as a process to look at things, and a process to aspire towards and develop towards. All of that comes out through the design tool we just given, because actually we begin to find that coherent thing. Imagine if we can express everything that we want to do as a group, and everything that this place is about, It's a simple, something as simple as that, simple something. It's incredibly powerful. And then imagine when you, with this in mind, Moelyci is this place, you arrive at this gateway and there's this, not just a parking space, it's multifunctional, beautiful, I can get lost in the bays, I just want to, and then you see this very beautiful shop building, whether it's phase one, the original one, perhaps phase two or something, eco-build and interesting, but either way that's just going to just draw people in, isn't it? All of those community interactions that can happen around that. It's a fantastic picture that you painted between all of the groups. And this consistency of the values that have come out through everything. And just keep going back to the core principles, and I really like how you stated that really clearly, and this, you've got this really kind of clearly from Adam as well, is we're trying to create, we've got to pay the mortgage, we've got to be real. The overall idea around it is about putting communities back in charge of their assets, of the assets that they need to meet their own needs, which is completely within the permaculture ethic. And we want to create a replicable model, which also is to demonstrate, educate, replicate model that Chris Evans has taught us to do, which is all of these ideas really speaking to these really core and central and powerful ideas. And this is how Moelyci will be successful in flowing from a common point. And then we flow everything out through zone 0, through zone 1, through the kind of the heart. And Grace painted us a fantastic picture of how we might use the house. I thought it was really interesting how it interfaced with how Marianne saw it, which is very much a similar function. It's facilitating short-term, medium-term, on-site accommodation. And we can build an on-site community that's going to actually deliver all of these things. We can't do these things without people. And it's obvious that it's going to flow from the heart of the centre. I think there's a stroke of genius at turning a house into cooperative, because we create a self-managing system then, not something that we have to be landlord. And by linking through both groups and other things, it becomes part of the whole learning process. And this is what we want from the academy, is to interact with all these processes. We're interested in cooperative formation, we're interested in consensus decision making, we're interested in all the landscape things. Martin, your speech was absolutely fantastic. It was a really great words, it was beautifully delivered, and it painted a really powerful picture of what this is about. And it really focuses on farming, and this was built, and as Lucy told us at the beginning, this farm was conceived in the 1830s, where it was to feed the surrounding community, to meet the needs of that time. Well, it's not that time now, it's a different time. We're still meeting those same needs, and we're using it as a slightly different framework. And that framework brings in community, but also invites us to innovate and to look at all the things that you touched on, and which I think, in a macro way, really related to your introduction that you gave, the perspective that you gave us, looking down on at the planet Earth from the outside, and how we interact with that, and short, medium, and long term, and not getting too, we shouldn't get too obsessed over place and owning and controlling things. Just part of this huge process. And there's so much to learn from that, there's so much that we can take back that and share, and then help nourish the community through the shop, through all of the other things we talk about. Obviously, the more you increase the brand value of the 6 to 39 permaculture design course, the more we can supply needs from on-site produce, the more that we can replicate all of the ideas through the workshops of what you see around you, and involve people in building that infrastructure. So I like the way you put the 700 stakeholders at the heart of it. I like the way you communicate the brand value. I like the way that your core ideas drove into into all of the ideas that are at the heart of what Moelyci needs to be. And I think that you gave us a really good perspective to tie that all together from a sort of bigger perspective. And I really like the way you all contributed to the overall picture. So yeah, I mean, it's 4 o'clock, we've got to the end, we have to give a huge round of applause to you guys. That was a fantastic presentation.
Can we just congratulate Julie one further? Because she came here and the first go round, she said 2 weeks ago, I know absolutely
So, so realising that, and it's really hard to come up with the design presentations. You've heard all these layers and zones and sectors and, all the swales and, I feel like you've got to use them all in the design. And actually, I think we use things very appropriately. You might even go permaculture crazy and stick those spirals everywhere. I think it was really coherent and structured thinking. I think we came from everyone. Brilliant.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, I can initiate you. Jack, if you would step forward for me just one moment. So we can kind of do the closing thing. You can kind of stand up and...
Do you want me to go inside?
Relate. No.
Sorry.
You can all stand up. You can all stand up. You all stand up now. I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to just initiate you into a little thing. So, you have now graduated, so you're now permaculture design graduates, which you can use the word permaculture. You're part of a kind of a new society, right? So like anything you kind of secret society is, we have our rituals, and I'm allowed to initiate you into the permaculture secret handshake. And we call this the permaculture salute. And now you know this, right? You're not allowed to share it to everybody else, or obviously you will have to be killed. But and this is, I'm going to demonstrate you now, so I hope you're watching carefully now. Jack, just say perhaps you were walking down the street and you saw someone coming and you thought, that was a permaculture kind of place. And you might signal that with your left hand to us, right? So you do this, okay? And then you approach them, and then you do this, and then you do this. And you say, very well done, everybody.